Good afternoon. I'm Attorney Ben Crump, along with Attorney Tony Ramanucci and Judge Ernestine Doyce. We have the honor of representing the family of Tyre Nichols and Gershon Freeman. Also, with some great lawyers, we have the honor of representing the family of Ronald Greene, who you're going to learn about in just a few minutes. It is appropriate that we stand before the Lorraine Hotel here in Memphis, Tennessee, where Martin Luther King was tragically assassinated, where he lived his life fighting for equality and justice for all citizens. Equal justice under the law is the hallmark in most federal courthouses across America. And so we're here with the family of Tyre Nichols, who you all know was brutally beaten to death by 5 black police officers here in Memphis, Tennessee. And we know within a week's time, those 5 black police officers were terminated from their jobs, they were arrested, and they were charged in 5 days. And then, shortly thereafter, you had state charges brought against those 5 black police officers, and you had federal charges brought against them for the beaten death of Tyre Nichols. And we said right then, right, Ms. Rovine, we want this to be the precedent now. We don't want it to be just if black officers beat and brutalize our children, that they are immediately dealt with. We want the same when white police officers brutalize and kill our children too. Well, we have an apples to apples comparison practically with Tyre Nichols in Memphis, Tennessee, and Ronald Greene in Louisiana, because both of them on video. You have police officers beating Ronald Greene to death, just like you saw video of Tyre Nichols. You had Tyre Nichols stopped for a traffic stop, allegedly. You had Ronald Greene stopped from a traffic stop. And then you had police officers who made reports that contradicted what was on the video in Tyre Nichols. You had police reports made by the Louisiana state troopers that contradicted what was on the video. And so what was the difference between Tyre Nichols and the officers that killed him in his tragic death and Ronald Greene and the officers that killed him in his tragic death? Well, it's America in black and white. You have 5 black police officers here in Memphis, Tennessee, who killed Tyre, and you have 5 white police officers in Louisiana who killed Ronald Greene. And so we're here making an appeal yet again for Ronald Greene's family to have federal charges brought, because his mother, who's present here with us, who you'll hear from, Miss Mona Hardin, and his sister Danielle Hardin, and the other sister Pepper Hardin, have fought so hard to get the federal government to bring charges, because they do not trust that they're going to get any justice in that part of Louisiana where he was killed at. And so they need the federal government, Department of Justice, to do what they have always done for African Americans in America. When you're in the deep South and it doesn't seem as if you can get justice, then we need the federal intervention to come forward. And so I'm so grateful to Tyre Nichols' parents, Rovine Wells and Rodney Wells, his mother and father for using their platform and their attention, not just to try to get justice for Tyre Nichols, but to also try to use their influence to be a benefit to other black and brown people and white people who nobody seems to give any attention to. And so I can never say thank you enough, Rovon and Rodney Wells, for coming here today to help uplift Mona Harding. And I'll give him a minute to get his tape recorder since we. Judge, I don't know if you want to say anything. So we're going to have Rovon Wells and Rodney Wells come to the podium along with Mona Harding and Danielle Harding. And Miss Rovon and them will speak first, and then we'll introduce you to Miss Mona.
Good afternoon, everyone. Rodney Wells. Today we're standing here to bring some type of awareness to the case of Ronald Greene. I met his mother, Mona, last year at the Congressional Black Caucus event in 2023. When she told her story, it brought chills to me because it was so similar to my own son's tragedy. But what was so what was so bad about this situation was that the fact that this happened to her baby in 2019. In 2019, on May 10th, right, Ronald Greene was driving home and he was stopped by 5 Louisiana state troopers. He was beaten to death, and I never heard of his story. Didn't know anything of his story. So when I found out about his story, and when it became clear that our stories were so similar, we became very good friends, and we learned to lean on one another. When my son's case came to federal trial, I started asking questions and asking some of the federal prosecutors in Memphis, had they heard of Ronald Greene's story. Some of them said they did, some of them said they didn't. But I wanted to know why that there wasn't a civil rights case for him.
Amen. Amen.
I mean, this was 2019, and he was beaten by 5 Louisiana state troopers. And this lady right here is still fighting for justice.
That's right.
So I guess my question is, how come some cases are treated with more respect than others? And so we need to bring awareness to those cases that are not being treated equally.
Equal justice.
Yes. So today I want to introduce you to Mona Harding. This is the mother of Ronald Greene. And hopefully we can bring some type of justice to her family, and we can talk to those people in Louisiana and try to get justice.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, Ron. Yes.
Love you too.
Miss Mona.
It's Mona Harding.
First of all, I just want to thank Tyre Nichols' family, and I promise I won't get emotional. It's so hard.
You can.
You can.
You talk a little louder.
The Crump firm, everyone here, the boots on ground, the activists, it's the ugliness that we cannot turn our backs on. It should be equal justice across the board. Like Rose said, this is in 2019. Ronnie was the term I quickly learned about driving while black in the state of Louisiana, the Deep South. As we see it now, it's a genocide that lingers really heavy. And you cannot turn your back on what's happening throughout all the states. I was told when Ronnie was murdered by these troopers, and I thank you, Ro, for stating it as you did. I got chills as I'm talking.
Yeah.
You have these white officers. And what happened with Tyre in a week's time, black officers, it should be equal justice.
That's right.
You're an officer, you're a badge, uniform, state-paid officer. You're patrolling the streets, and none of you are above the law. White, black, whatever color you are. You got that so-called oath to protect and serve your community, not to go out there and butcher innocent black and brown citizens. Because this is a genocide, and we got to call it like it is.
Tell it like it is.
It is. My son was killed in 2019. You have so many others that come afterwards, and this is not stopping. This is not stopping. And what's happening? Yes, what's happening with the fact that it took 3.5 years, you're dealing with, because we were told that Ronnie was killed when he was driving, he died of a car wreck. And we found out in a matter of hours, mere days, that Ronnie's car wasn't damaged. It was slight. You can see it. There's videos out there. And the lies in the cover-up, it just, you can connect, I say that repeatedly, you can connect all the dots on those complicit to protect these rogue killer cops. It is what it is. And in the midst of all that, you do have Carl Cavalier, who spoke up. He also, a Louisiana state trooper. They fired him. They fired the black cop who came out and told about the evillest he knew. And he was telling it. He was telling it all. They fired him, and they kept all those that put their hands on Ronnie, all those complicit. They've been allowed to retire. They've been allowed to serve their term out. They've been, yes, pensions. Even, you got Chris Hollingsworth. He's the one that bragged about, I beat the devil of an F out of him. His words. He was out there. A year later, we were told that they were going to fire him, and behind that, he died in a car wreck. I don't see it that way. I never believed it then. I don't believe it now. But the point is, what happened, how it's stated, and Chris Hollingsworth's records are sealed. Why is that? Why is that? He bragged about what he did to my son, but when he died, his family, he died and was his burial was with all the whistles, bells of a hero.
It's important to note another similarity between Tyre Nichols and Ronald Greene. You had audio and video of one of the officers saying, I was hitting Tyre with haymakers as hard. I don't know, we were beating him. I mean, he was almost bragging about it. And in Ronald Greene, you have the same situation where they are boasting about beating them to death. And the officer who they have saying that he beat the profane words out of him, there's a question, where was it, Miss Mona, the day they were coming to arrest him or charge him, he allegedly gets in an accident and is killed in the car accident when he knows they're coming to arrest him.
And all that was challenged about, you know, did he really die that way? But his records are sealed.
And his records are sealed. He leaves a hero with no accountability whatsoever for what he did to her son. There's one part in the video, and it's so heartbreaking. Ronald, this African American citizen, is saying, "Yeah, okay, I'm your brother. You don't have to do this." He is literally saying, "We're brothers," and they kick him. And I mean, it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And the question is, why no federal charges for Ronald Greene?
Right.
Because the family suspect without federal charges, there would be little to no justice for Ronald Greene. And we're here to fight not only for justice for Tyre Nichols, but we're saying justice for Ronald Greene.
That's right.
Yes.
Justice for Ronald Greene. Justice for Ronald Greene. Justice for Ronald Greene. Justice for Ronald Greene. Justice for Ronald Greene.
Yes.
And so we want people to know his name just like they know Tyre Nichols' name and George Floyd and the others. We will, Danelle, do you have anything to say before we go to questions?
None, I was,
Did you hear?
no,
Okay, I was and
today.
okay, you should, Danelle. And we continue to talk about all the cases. Gershon Freeman. We want the federal government, when you have video evidence of them beating somebody to death, it shouldn't matter whether they're black or white or not. You got the ocular proof. You got the evidence. You don't need narration or nothing. You can see it with your own eyes. Do the right thing. That's all we're saying.
That's right.
And so we will answer questions about this. I know some of you had questions about the Tyre Nichols aftermath of the trial. So we'll try to answer all your questions. But first we want to talk about Ronald Greene. Are there any questions?
So where does it stand right now? Is everything still on hold? And has there ever been a trial?
In Ronald Greene's case? You know, there were state charges. However, 2 of the cases have been dismissed. Hollingsworth, you know, if you believe Miss Mona and their family, killed himself to avoid the charges. And the other 2 officers, you know, right now, when is it going to get the trial? Will anybody go to jail for killing Ronald Greene? That's why Miss Mona and her family here, they think unless they're federal charges, they don't feel nobody's going to go to jail.
The feds are investigating.
They've been reviewing and looking at the case for 4 years now,
Yes.
and they haven't done anything.
The last conversation was we're still actively investigating it. And that came from federal agent, yes, John Luke Walker.
Thank
With the negligent homicide dropped against Officer York, does this even add more to you in terms of, you know, the urgency for calling for Department of Justice investigation?
Exactly. Miss Mona?
Yes, that's where I mean, ever since my son was murdered, I've been begging. No stone unturned. Someone please. I mean, you think that when you go up the ladder and you're dealing with the highest of entities here, we're talking about the White House Department of Justice, okay? You have these FBI agents, you got Kristen Clark, Merrick Garland. I mean, Ronnie's case, even though they tried their best to hush it up, it's known. But for the fact that we say no one's above the law, why are they protecting these white cops? That's how we see it. That's how we've always seen it. Because there should be due justice across the board.
Yeah.
If you commit murder, you're not above the law.
Yeah.
You need to be held accountable like anybody else. And we're leaning, I'm begging the Department of Justice, please, don't turn your back. Don't turn your back.
Yeah.
You know, how would it be if that was your son?
Yeah. Wow.
But this is my son, and someone needs to be held accountable for murdering Ronald Greene. Someone needs to be held accountable for Tyre Nichols. all the unanswered. There's so many countless families here who are begging for a level of accountability across the board. We shouldn't have to be having these meetings and begging for someone to look at this, turn it over.
Any other questions?
Attorney Crump, can you kind of comment on, and the Wells family comment on Desmond Mills just, the filed something seeking a sentence delay to February. Then, Bean and Smith are seeking acquittal. And Haley wants out on bond, and only one person is still in jail, that's Haley that wants out.
I will let Ms. Robine respond first.
Well, I didn't know about Mills. This is something new. This is our first time hearing this. As far as Smith and Bean is concerned, you know, us as a family, we had to accept the verdict that the jury gave for those two. They did not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, guilty. So for them to file acquittals, it's like a slap in the face to a degree, because they're not respecting what the jury set forth. The jury said they were guilty for that particular charge, so they should accept that. As far as them, yes, as far as them being out, I mean, they're on house arrest. At least they're at home. My son is not at home.
That's right.
My son is in an urn right now. So for them to be at home, that's a blessing to them.
Wow.
As far as Haley, he deserves to be where he is.
That's right.
Speak it.
So I have nothing more else to say about that. And that's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
And I think Ms. Wells answered the question perfectly. You want to respect the jury when they say not guilty, but you want to challenge them when they say guilty. And any other questions?
Can I say something?
Yes, Tammy, sorry.
Sorry, excuse me. Thank you.
Hello, Tammy.
Hi, how are you? I'm sorry. All right.
Mr. White, anything before we? No. My wife did.
I just wanted to add to both these families that this is the perfect timing for this press conference. University of North Carolina men, South Carolina women are here right now. So the media has no excuse not to elevate this story nationally. All eyes are on Memphis today, and this story should be a part of the story of what's happening here today. We can't talk about our black children playing basketball well. I'll be at the game, but I'm also going to continue to stand with both families. Mr. Greene should be able to watch national basketball. Tyrese should be rooting for the Tigers tonight. So this has to be a part of the narrative of what's happening in Memphis. We also start early voting tomorrow, and I'm not a candidate, so this is not me stumping for anyone. But if we don't believe that elections have consequences, you are seeing the outcome of us not voting higher than 10% in Shelby County and across the country. Because when families have to beg federal prosecutors who are appointed by presidents, when families have to beg local prosecutors and DAs who are appointed by mayors, who are voted in by the people, and we aren't turning out to vote, you remember the pain that you see on these families' faces and know that tomorrow we start early voting for one of the most consequential elections of our lives. And if you don't believe it's consequential, talk to Mr. and Mrs. Wells. Talk to Ronald Greene's mother and father. Go vote.
Go vote.
And then the last person you'll hear from is Ronald's sister, Janelle Harden.
Hello, everyone. I'd just like to thank you all for coming out and standing with us as we hold hands with the Tyre Nichols family. I can't believe we're here in Memphis. Asking you all to just say Ronald Greene's name with us.
Ronald Greene.
Greene.
Ronald Greene.
But before I leave, I'm not
Take
good
your
at
time,
this.
baby. Take your time.
I'd like for you all to just take your phones out, get a pen out, and write down Kristen Clark's phone number so you all can join us in this call to action. Her number is area code 202-514-3847. Again, this is the U.S. Attorney, United States Attorney General. I'm sorry, she's the Assistant Attorney General's to the Civil Rights Division. I'm
Do you have
sorry.
Merrick Garland's number? Because they really
No,
gonna
but
make
this is
decision.
this is direct. Oh, no, I
Okay.
don't have.
And also call Merrick Garland too,
Yeah.
because her boss, she has to get approval to bring charges. And so call Kristen Clark and call Merrick Garland.
Right.
So
And
we-
also reach out to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Right.
Amen.
We need them to make a statement on Ronald Greene's murder / cover-up.
Yes.
Amen.
And again, that number for Kristen Clark is 202-514-3847.
Say his name.
Ronald Greene.
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 Say his name.
Ronald Greene. Thank you all very much. We'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.